Hype is a very effective tool that developers and publishers know to use against us. The point should be clear, exciting us to the point where we are willing to throw away all reason and open up our wallets. The goal to sell as many pre-orders as possible often trumps any desire to deliver a good product, let alone one that can live up to all the hype that has been created around it. If there's one thing that the past couple years should have taught us as consumers, then it is the fact that hype is a very dangerous tool. But is it exclusively bad for us? Can anything good come out of the practice that is hyping up game releases, or should we always approach new products with a healthy bit of cynicism? That's what I want to explore today, my friends. When it comes to my own excitement, it has been a long time that I've been truly hyped for a new game. I remember the launch of Rainbow Six Siege as if it had been yesterday, with me and my friends picking up the game in beta to get our game on and then later jump into it once the thing was released. The Division saw a similar level of enthusiasm from us, setting everything up in a way that would allow us to grind the game from the very beginning, right at launch. It doesn't take me, nor does it take an expert to convince you guys that experiences like that can be very scarring. Many remember the hot mess that was the release of both Rainbow Six as well as The Division. Games that were hyped into the heavens and beyond that saw downgrades and a lot of broken promises. Many game makers are not shy to make use of not only hype as a marketing tool, but also our trust that has been built over the years, using a familiar IP such as Tom Clancy's to sell a game that really does not have a heck of a lot to do with it in the first place. The stories that both of these games tell are at the same time alike as well as completely different. Something that I give Ubisoft a lot of credit for is their ambition. Yes, we have seen many downgrades and many trailers that depicted their games in a way that simply was not reflective of the final product. But Ubisoft is willing to take risks in an attempt to bringing us games that do something differently. Games that feel and play in a way that many other publishers are afraid of approaching because it does not fit their cookie-cutter type of safe sale. Ubisoft tried to salvage both of these games, but one of them was destined to fail from the very beginning. Where Rainbow Six Siege now stands tall as one of the most popular FPS period, The Division only enjoyed a temporary second honeymoon phase. But how does hype play into all of this? Well, it is my assumption that The Division was simply way more overhyped than Rainbow Six Siege, and if we take a look at their launch numbers, it seems like I'd be right to think that. The Division started off with over 100,000 players, whereas Rainbow Six Siege was kicking things off around 20,000. Needless to say that a fall from such a vastly higher distance is going to hurt a wee bit more. 3 months after launch, we are seeing about half the player base abandon the game at its worst in Siege, whereas for The Division, only about 10% of the players decide to stick around according to Steam charts. It seems obvious that while both of these games were massively overhyped, one of them got hit a bit heavier than the other. That it seems like one of them managed to break more promises than the other. Where Rainbow Six was just a glitchy, bug and hacker-infested mess with a clunky UI, The Division just did not feel like a complete game. Neither did it feel like much of the game that we have been promised. The difference here is that salvaging Rainbow Six was easier because the expectations were not as high, and the base that the game delivered was at least reminiscent of what we had been promised. So what does that tell us for our experience as consumers? Maybe that the more ambitious and the more unbelievable a game seems to be, and the more expectations it starts to create, well, to make it short, if you climb too high, the fall is gonna get worse. Think of it that way. A product that is inherently and convincingly good does not need to sell itself as more than it is. Think about some recent examples of games that did it right. Monster Hunter World did not bother to hype us into the heavens. We've gotten teasers, we've gotten trailers, and we were told what the game would be. And when it came out, it was exactly what we thought. The marketing fulfilled its purpose of letting us know that, hey, Monster Hunter World is a game and it might be something that you guys are interested in. Nothing that they told us was unbelievable to any capacity, but it did look very good nonetheless. On the contrary, No Man's Sky. Countless interviews and posts that were supposed to hype us for what was to come, piling up more and more unbelievable innovations on top of each other. And well, we all know how that ended. Looking at Anthem, I feel like we might be looking at something similar. Granted, what we have been shown so far was not necessarily unbelievable, but impressive and fairly ambitious. So in the context of our topic today, can we use our experience with the games that have been hyped up and did not deliver in the end to figure out if Anthem is something worth being excited about? It's honestly kinda hard to tell at this point. I mean, sure, the game looked absolutely gorgeous, almost too good to believe that this is a game that many PCs, let alone consoles, could run. A vast open world that allows us to fly freely with dynamic weather and open world events. And all of that with this level of graphical fidelity? It's not entirely unbelievable given the fact that scaling technology exists. For example, decreasing the resolution or graphical fidelity in parts of the screen that the player is not focusing on to improve performance. It is something that a bunch of games are already taking advantage of. I think what seals the deal for Anthem is what we are going to see in the upcoming year. The launch has been postponed, which personally I dare say is a good thing. For a project as ambitious as that, giving them more time to do it right might be the best idea. But if we are seeing another Watch Dogs, a Rainbow Six Siege or Division with EA constantly firing more and more live-recorded gameplay at us, and we feel like they almost oppressively try to convince us of how good of a game Anthem is going to be, we should probably take it with a grain of salt. In which case, no, hype is not an exclusively bad thing. If we catch ourselves getting too hyped and we feel like it's too good to be true, you know, maybe it really is too good to be true. But I think something that many channels ignore are the positives that surround the hype for a new game. Sure, we can objectively assess that hype for the sake of clouding our judgment to open up our wallets for pre-orders is a bad thing, but hype is not solely negative. You might remember that in the beginning I was speaking of not only myself, but my circle of friends when it came to our hype surrounding Rainbow Six as well as The Division. Hype can bring people together, create communities, and help players enjoy games in a way that some might never get to. I think a lot of people would agree when I said that many games are best enjoyed when played with friends, or hell, even just in a group of people, period. Sure, a game that requires you to play with friends to have any fun at all is not a good game in the first place. At this point, it does not matter what you play, as long as you play it with your friends. But the hype that we share in the weeks prior to a game's launch and the plans that we forge together create experiences that are so much more memorable than us downloading the bloody thing, being disappointed with the downgrade, and refunding it. Games can be platforms to create communities. Games are so much more than a money investment for some sort of entertainment value. Having all of us sit down together in TeamSpeak, making plans for when we should meet up to play, taking a couple days off of work to share the launch experience together, and punching ourselves through what the game has to offer. Those are the things that created memorable experiences that make me feel like I did not regret my purchase of any of those games. We were so hyped for The Division that getting our hands on the beta was legitimately something that some of us decided to take a day off for, and hell, we had a great time playing. The counterpiece to that would be approaching the launch with as much of a cynical mindset as possible, being ready to get disappointed and, while open to be convinced, still more likely to leave with a negative mindset. If I think back to all the launches that I spent alone versus those that I spent with friends and family, the best experiences were obviously created in the latter. For the Warlords of Draenor expansion in World of Warcraft, I was just frustrated. I spent the night alone hoping that the bloody server would finally stop lagging, so I did not feel like I wasted taking 2 days off. Same game, next expansion in Legion. Sharing my excitement with friends and deciding to approach the launch in a group helped me having way more fun. And that is why I dare hype the next expansion as well, because I know I won't be alone, and I know that even if things go south, we will have our group, and damn it, we'll have fun no matter what. And sometimes, sticking around because of that initial hype allows you to enjoy games in a way that others who abandon the ship never will. The Division is arguably a much better game now than it was before, and those who created their communities and shared their passion get to enjoy that now, whereas most of us with a cynical mindset abandoned it with absolutely no hope that it would ever get better. The first Destiny game also seemed to get better with the introduction of more DLC content, something that you can very obviously fault them for, but reality is that many voiced that they did not regret sticking with it to the very end. Overwatch 2 was a game that I hyped from the day that I got my hands on the beta, and I was not disappointed with it despite the fact that I found a lot of things to fault the game for. If I had the choice between staying hyped for it and then sticking around through thick and thin to eventually enjoy it in its best state, or abandoning it early based on its faults and my cynical mindset, I would always choose my unreasonable, money-wasting hype. Because sticking around allowed me to build up a community of wonderful individuals whom I enjoy interacting with. It allowed me to see the game at its best and at its worst, and we are nowhere near the end of the road either. I would not have stuck around as long as I did was it not for all the hype that got me excited in the first place. Hype is a gut feeling that can often fool us. Game makers try to squeeze every last penny out of us, and that preferably as early as possible. There's no way I can argue against the fact that unnecessary hype makes us waste money and regret our purchases in a big way. But I refuse to accept that hype is exclusively a bad thing. As unreasonable as it is, hype allowed me to overlook flaws and problems to see games for more than a monetary investment. Hype has allowed me to make new friends and create stronger bonds with existing ones, creating more memories that I love thinking back to. Whether you feel the same is obviously up to you. But this is me done for the day, so I talk about the general idea of hyping up video game launches. At the end of the day, this is just my take on the subject, so feel free to let us know your take by going down into the comment section below. But until then, thank you everybody so much for watching. Don't forget to drop me a like on your way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and I hope to see you all next time.